Well, why don't you lead us into our number one because we do agree on this, and it is without a doubt the top tournament in Feast Week.
Yep, and that will of course be the Maui Invitational. I mean, wow, that this could be the best tournament of all time. Just looking on paper right now,
Yeah.
obviously teams could underperform this season, and we can look back in March and say this all wasn't all that we thought it was. But looking at it right now, I mean, Tennessee, really talented roster. They won it last year, I think. And then you got Syracuse, who new coach, obviously, Matt, you can talk about this a little bit more, but Judah Mintz is back. A lot of people think he could be one of the best guards in college basketball this year, and they brought in some really talented guys as well. Purdue, Zach Edey is back, player of the year. They'll be really good. Those freshman guards, they'll have a year of experience. They'll get better. Gonzaga, I mean, the most consistent team the last 15 years, I'd say. And they brought in Ryan Nembhard, one of my favorite college basketball players. They lose Timmy, but with Mark Few, they're going to be great. And then you got Kansas, arguably the preseason number one. They brought in Hunter Dickinson. Bill Self's healthy again. Like they're probably the favorites heading in. And then the best team on paper, Chaminade, of course, who always find their way into this tournament. Then you got UCLA. Nick Cronin's a great coach. They lost a lot last year, but they always find ways to win. And then of course Marquette, who could be the best team in the Big East. I know the Big East is really top heavy, but Shaka Smart's back. They bring back most of their team from last year. That was Big East champions, and they'll probably be a top 5, top 10 team heading into this college basketball season. So you have arguably 4 of the top 10 teams in this tournament, maybe even more. And then you got some teams that could be top 25 easily by the end of the season. I mean, it's ridiculous how stacked this is, and that should just lead to a lot of really great games.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. Like you summed it up right there. I was gonna say that. I'm glad we agreed that on paper this might be the most stacked early season tournament in college basketball history. The Maui Invitational is that good this year. You have Chaminade, and it doesn't even matter. By the way, they play in the Pac West, which in about a year is going to be better than the Pac 12. So props to them. Um, Sometimes it's like, okay, I wish there was an eighth team, but it doesn't even matter this year. The format is pretty much always the same. You get the Power Six plus a mid major team. Well, guess what? You go and get the best mid major team who isn't even really a mid major, and that's Gonzaga. And I think year to year, usually the Maui, 3 of those 6 power conference teams are maybe the number one or the number two team in the conference. With the exception of Syracuse and UCLA, Tennessee, Marquette, Purdue, and Kansas are all either number one or number two in their conference heading into the season. Of course, Kansas and Purdue are maybe number 1 and 2 in the country, whichever way you organize them. Then, like you mentioned before, I mean, UCLA is going to be in for a down year, but Mick Cronin always coaches well, and they're one of the most storied programs in history. So it doesn't even matter that they're going to be in for a little bit of a down year. It's still great that UCLA is in it. And you can say the same about Syracuse to a lighter extent. A great storied program, maybe the most underrated player in this entire tournament in Judah Mintz, because I think he's going to be in for a breakout year. You talk about teams that might win the Maui, who knows? Maybe Judah Mintz goes out and averages 22 and 6 and gets Syracuse to the championship game of this tournament. Like, you never know what can happen in the Maui. By the way, don't quote me on this, but I think Cuse is undefeated in the Maui Invitational. They've won it a few times, so I should know that, but I'm just throwing that out there. I'm just
Yeah,
throwing that out there. I'm
great
gonna
point.
ride off that fact.
I mean, just looking at the quarterfinals, it's insane. So this is the first round. You have Tennessee, Syracuse. You have Purdue, Gonzaga. I mean, that could be a Final Four matchup in a few months from now. Kansas,
Yeah,
Chaminade, and then you have UCLA, Marquette. So I mean, that's just insane right off the bat. That's just the quarterfinals too. Then you get semifinals, which could be even better than the finals, which is it could be a championship preview. Honestly, we could be talking about that after that game. That these are the 2 best teams in the country, which is so exciting. And obviously, a lot going on in Maui right now. We're praying that everything's okay and that we can have this tournament. Obviously, that's way, way, way down on priorities right now. And if it happens, it happens. If not, if not. But if it does happen, then I think college basketball fans and just basketball fans in general are in for a treat.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that because that is important. Obviously, right now, that's at the focal point when you're talking about Maui is what's going on with the wildfires and how many people have lost their lives. And our prayers go over to them here at CBB Review. I believe that when COVID went on, they did move the tournament to North Carolina. So I would assume the tournament will still get played. Just where it gets played is the question. I do want to just kind of go on what you said there, and this is the coolest part. I'll take it to another level. Not only could we see a championship preview here, we could see multiple championship previews. It's not like Kansas versus Purdue is the only possible championship outcome. I mean, you could get Kansas Tennessee, you could get Kansas Gonzaga, you could get Purdue Kansas, Purdue Marquette. There's multiple potential championship games that could end up in a Final Four or championship in the big dance. And that's what makes this year's Maui so exciting.